So we're talking about the culture of having, contrasting it with the culture of giving. I grew up in Los Angeles. I was in New York. I worked in the financial industry and working in Wall Street. And just watching the films, I think you would realize it's a culture of having. Having means not only having what is necessary, what's essential, but having always more and having more and more and more and more. I also see that in the athletes, that someone who's making, let's say, $100 million is not happy because the other person is making $120 million, right? Or someone, a CEO that's making, I don't know, $1 billion is not enough. And so that gets propagated, I think, in the minds and the culture. I remember also when I was doing my MBA, some of the business professors were always inculcating in our mind that when we have businesses, we always need to think of growing, of getting more and more and more and more. And so that was the framework, I think, that for most of us have. Now, what does it mean, the culture of giving? I think with the experience of the Focolare spirituality and also the economy of communion, it's this idea that when you love, when you give a gift, the joy that gives back to you is a lot more. You know, many times I would remember also, like going to a hospital or going to comfort someone. I would think that I'm giving, and yet in that giving, I receive more. I get a lot more than what I give. So that is, in terms of technically or concretely in the business world, I've seen that people who have given their needs, so even just the fact that someone that comes and says, I need a job, they're giving that need to me, and I says, okay, and so I receive that, and I give it back to them, and says, okay, let's see how we could work this out. And typically in the transactional world of business, there is giving and receiving. I give you my talent, and I receive salary. I think that's obviously in a business, that's part of why you work there. But you give a lot more than your technical talents, I think. In a EOC business, you give also yourself, your inspiration, you give your ego, and you give your pride, and you receive a lot more. You receive tangible benefits. You receive joy. I think I keep saying joy, and that's, I think, is prominent. Even sometimes when we think of work, it looks like it's an oxymoron, work and joy. But in this culture of giving and receiving, you receive a lot more. So I think, in a summary, it's not only it's a culture of giving, but it's a culture of giving and receiving. That in giving, spontaneously you receive, and the more you receive, the more you give. So I think it's a nice, and it's not a vicious circle. It's a nice circle to have. That the more you receive, the more you give. So the more you give, the more you receive.